Picture this, a young woman, no older than 22, trudging through the dense forest trails of her remote mountain village. She's carrying a basket filled with herbs she'd collected that morning. Her hands calloused from years of hard work, but steady as ever. The air is crisp, and sunlight filters through the canopy above in golden streaks. But then, something catches her eyes, a faint glimmer of unnatural color against the mossy rocks nearby. Her heart skips a beat when she realizes it's not just Deborah, it's a man sprawled unconscious on the ground, his expensive suit torn and bloodied, his face pale beneath the dirt. This moment will change everything for both of them. The girl, named Mira, has lived all her life in the quiet seclusion of her village, nestled deep within the mountains. Life there isn't easy. Every day demands resilience, patience, and an unshakable spirit. Yet Mira carries herself with grace, her kindness well known among the villagers. She doesn't expect much from life beyond tending to her family's small farm and helping those around her. That's why finding this stranger feels like stepping into another world entirely. Who is he? How did he end up here? Miles away from civilization, injured and alone. As she kneels beside him, her instincts kick in. She knows she can't leave him there. He needs help, and fast. Mira drags him to safety, her muscles burning under the weight of his limp body, her mind racing with questions. Back at her modest home, she tends to his wounds with care, using what little medical knowledge she possesses and the herbal remedies passed down by her grandmother. Hours turn into days as the mysterious man slowly regains consciousness. When he finally opens his eyes, confusion clouds his expression. He looks around the room, taking in the rustic furniture, the flickering lantern light, and finally, Mira sitting quietly by his side. His voice is hoarse as he asks where he is and who she is. And though his tone is polite, there's something about him, his posture, his gaze that hints at a life far removed from hers. His name is Ethan Carter, and if Mira had any idea who he truly was, she might have hesitated before bringing him into her home. Ethan is no ordinary man. He's the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the world, worth billions and known for his sharp mind and ruthless business tactics. But right now, lying on a straw mat in a tiny mountain hut, none of that matters. All that matters is survival and gratitude. As the days pass, Mira learns fragments of his story. A helicopter crash during a private trip left him stranded in these unforgiving terrains. Without her intervention, he admits, he might not have made it. For someone so accustomed to power and control, being vulnerable comes unnervingly close to humility. And yet, there's something about Mira's quiet strength and selflessness that leaves a lasting impression on him. For Mira, Ethan becomes both a mystery and a challenge. She's never met anyone like him before, someone whose accent sounds foreign, whose clothes speak of wealth beyond imagination, and whose mannerisms are polished yet guarded. Despite their differences, however, they begin to form a bond. Conversations flow easily between them, ranging from stories of her simple life in the village to tales of his high-stakes corporate battles. They laugh over shared meals of roasted vegetables and wild mushrooms, and sometimes sit in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the jagged peaks outside. Yet, even as their connection deepens, an underlying tension simmers beneath the surface. What happens when Ethan recovers fully? Will he simply thank her and return to his glamorous life, leaving her behind forever? As Ethan grows stronger, he starts thinking about the future. His company is waiting for him, emails piling up, deals hanging in the balance. Part of him feels guilty for lingering here, enjoying the simplicity of Mira's world, while his own responsibilities mount. But another part, the part that keeps sneaking glances at hers, reluctant to leave. There's something pure and untainted about Mira, something he hasn't encountered in years. In her presence, he feels grounded, almost human again. One evening, as they sit by the fire, Ethan makes a decision that surprises even himself. "Mira," he says softly, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "what if I asked you to come with me?" Her reaction is immediate, a mix of shock and disbelief. Leave the only home she's ever known, abandon her family and the life she's built. It seems impossible. But then again, hadn't fate already thrown her into the path of this extraordinary man? The thought lingers in her mind, gnawing at her resolve. Could she really step into his world, a place so vastly different from her own? More importantly, would he want her to stay for reasons deeper than gratitude? Before either of them can answer, a new complication arises. Word reaches the village that search parties are scouring the mountains, looking for Ethan. News helicopters circle overhead, and reporters flood the area, eager to capture the story of the missing billionaire. Suddenly, the peaceful isolation of Mira's home is shattered, replaced by chaos and intrusion. Ethan knows it's time to go back, but now he faces a dilemma. Does he take Mira with him or leave her behind, knowing full well that their lives may never intersect again? The final night before Ethan departs is charged with emotion. They talk late into the night, their words heavy with unspoken feelings. Mira confesses her fears of losing herself in his world, of becoming something she's not. Ethan listens intently, his expression unreadable. Then, just as dawn breaks, he takes her hand and says something that sends shivers down her spine. "I don't just want to repay you, Mira. I want to build a life with you if you'll let me." But before she can respond, the sound of approaching vehicles cuts through the stillness. Searchlights pierce the darkness, illuminating the small hut. Time is running out. Will Mira choose to follow Ethan into the unknown, or will she stay, rooted in the life she's always known? And more importantly, what awaits them if she says yes? The answers lie just beyond the horizon, but first, they must face the storm of uncertainty together. The roar of engines and the blinding glare of searchlights shattered the fragile peace of the mountain village. Mira stood frozen, her hand still clasped in Ethan's, as reality crashed down on them like an avalanche. The world outside was closing in, pulling Ethan back to the life he'd temporarily escaped, a life of deadlines, board meetings, and relentless expectations. For a moment, neither of them moved, their eyes locked in silent communication. What had seemed like a fleeting fantasy now felt impossibly real, and the weight of the decision before them pressed down heavily. Ethan broke the silence first, his voice firm but tinged with urgency. "Mira, we don't have much time. If you're coming with me, we need to leave now." His words hung in the air, each one loaded with unspoken implications. Mira's heart raced as she glanced around the room, the familiar cracks in the wooden walls, the herbs drying on strings above the hearth, the threadbare blanket draped over the chair. This was her home, her sanctuary. Could she really walk away from everything she'd ever known? And yet, the thought of letting Ethan go without her left a hollow ache in her chest. Her hesitation wasn't lost on him. Ethan stepped closer, his gaze softening. "I know it's a lot to ask," he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair, "but I also know that I can't just leave you here. Not after everything you've done for me. You saved my life, Mira. more than that. You showed me what it means to truly live to care for someone else without expecting anything in return. That's rare, and I know I want that in my life. With you, tears welled up in Mira's eyes, but she blinked them away, forcing herself to focus. She wanted to believe him, to trust that this wasn't just gratitude speaking, that he genuinely saw something in her worth fighting for. But doubt gnawed at her. What did she even know about his world? About being a billionaire's wife? Would she be accepted, or would she always feel like an outsider, forever out of place among polished skyscrapers and designer suits? As if sensing her turmoil, Ethan reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. "I won't lie to you," he said earnestly. "It won't be easy. My world is complicated, messy even. But I swear to you, I'll protect you. I'll make sure you never regret saying yes." Before Mira could respond, the sound of voices grew louder outside. Someone was calling Ethan's name, their tone urgent. The search party had arrived. Panic surged through her veins. Every second they delayed made the choice harder. Finally, with a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the commotion. "I'll go with you." Relief flooded Ethan's features, but there was no time to celebrate. Grabbing a small bag, he quickly packed a few essentials while Mira scribbled a hurried note to her family, explaining where she'd gone and promising to contact them soon. Her hands trembled as she folded the paper and placed it on the table, guilt already twisting in her gut. How would they react when they found out she'd left with a stranger, a man they didn't even know? Minutes later, they slipped out of the hut and into the chaos outside. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and security guards ushered Ethan toward a waiting helicopter. Mira clung to his arm, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of it all. The villagers stared in stunned disbelief as she climbed aboard, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. As the chopper lifted off the ground, Mira looked down at her home, shrinking beneath her, tears streaming down her cheeks. This was it. There was no turning back now. The journey to the city was a blur of noise and motion. Ethan held her hand tightly throughout, offering quiet reassurance whenever she tensed at the sight of towering buildings or bustling streets. When they finally arrived at his penthouse apartment, Mira felt like she'd stepped onto another planet. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the skyline. Sleek furniture gleamed under soft lighting, and the hum of technology filled the air. It was beautiful, yes, but alien. She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. Over the next few days, Ethan introduced her to his world bit by bit. He took her shopping for clothes, showed her how to navigate the sprawling metropolis, and patiently explained the intricacies of his business empire. At first, Mira tried to adapt, smiling politely and nodding along, but the pressure mounted quickly. Strangers gawked at her wherever she went, whispering behind her back. Tabloids splashed photos of her across their covers, speculating wildly about who she was and why Ethan had chosen her. Some praised her as a modern-day Cinderella. Others dismissed her as a gold digger. The scrutiny was suffocating. Meanwhile, tensions began to surface within Ethan's inner circle. His business partners questioned his judgment, worried that his personal life might distract him from the company's success. Even his closest friend, Daniel, voiced concerns. "Are you sure about this, Ethan?" he asked one evening during a private meeting. "She's not exactly prepared for this kind of life. People will eat her alive." Ethan bristled at the comment. "She's stronger than you give her credit for," he shot back. "And besides, none of that matters. I love her, Daniel. Isn't that enough? Daniel sighed, shaking his head. Love isn't always enough, my friend. You're playing with fire here. Though Ethan dismissed Daniel's warning, the seed of doubt had been planted. Doubts weren't limited to his colleagues, either. Mira herself struggled to reconcile the man. She'd met in the mountains with a powerful CEO who commanded boardrooms and made billion-dollar deals. Was he still the same person who'd laughed with her by the fire, sharing stories of his childhood dreams? Or had that version of him disappeared entirely once they'd entered this glittering new reality? Their relationship hit its first major test when Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Victoria, re-entered the picture. A glamorous socialite with connections to some of the most influential people in the industry. Victoria wasted no time reminding Mira of her plus or lack thereof, Ethan's world. During a charity gala, she cornered Mira in the ladies' room, her smile razor sharp. You must be so proud, Victoria sneered, snagging someone like Ethan. Tell me, does he keep you around because you remind him of simpler times? Or is it just pity? Mira's cheeks burned with shame, but she refused to let Victoria see her cry. Instead, she straightened her posture and met the other woman's gaze head-on. I'm here because Ethan chose me, she replied steadily. Not because I needed saving. Maybe you should remember that. Victoria laughed bitterly but walked away, leaving Mira shaken but determined. That night, she confronted Ethan, demanding to know why he hadn't warned her about Victoria, any of the challenges she'd face in his world. Their argument escalated quickly, dredging up insecurities and fears they'd both been suppressing. By the time they collapsed into exhausted silence, the gap between them felt wider than ever. Yet despite the growing tension, neither was ready to give up. They loved each other too deeply to walk away not yet. As weeks turned into months, they worked to rebuild their connection, navigating the complexities of their vastly different lives together. Slowly, Mira began to find her footing, discovering strengths she hadn't realized she possessed. She started volunteering at local charities, using her knowledge of herbal medicine to help underserved communities. In doing so, she carved out a niche for herself, one that earned her respect and admiration, even from skeptics. But just as things seemed to stabilize, a new threat emerged. A rival company launched a hostile takeover bid, putting Ethan's entire empire at risk. The stress pushed him to his limits, and old habits resurfaced. Late nights at the office, cryptic phone calls, and evasive answers left Mira feeling sidelined once again. Had she made a mistake in coming here? Was there love strong enough to withstand the storms ahead? One fateful evening, as rain pounded against the windows of their penthouse, Ethan returned home looking more defeated than Mira had ever seen him. Before he could speak, she stopped him with a single question. Do you still trust me, Ethan? Because I need to know if we're in this together, or if I'm just along for the ride. His answer would determine everything for both of them. Ethan looked at Mira, his eyes heavy with exhaustion but filled with something else, something raw and unguarded. He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. Mira, he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging outside. You're not just along for the ride. You're the reason I'm still standing. Without you, I don't think I'd have made it this far, not after the crash, and certainly not now. His words caught her off guard, but they weren't enough to erase the doubts gnawing at her. She pulled her hands away gently, shaking her head. Then why does it feel like we're drifting apart? Why do I feel like I'm losing the man I fell in love with? Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked vulnerably stripped, of the polished confidence that usually defined him. Because I let fear get in the way, he admitted. Fear of failing you, of dragging you into my messes, of not being enough. But Mira, you've always been stronger than me. You remind me of who I want to be, the person I was before all this. He gestured vaguely around the luxurious penthouse, as if acknowledging how much had changed since their days in the mountains. Mira's heart softened, but she wasn't ready to let go of her concerns. It's not just about us, Ethan. Your world, it's so big, so complicated, and I'm scared. Scared that no matter how hard I try, I'll never fit in. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you deserve someone who belongs here more than I do. Ethan moved closer, cupping her face in his hands. Listen to me, he said firmly, his gaze locking onto hers. You saved me when no one else could. Not because of where you come from or what you know, but because of who you are. Kind, brave, selfless. Those aren't things you learn, they're part of you. And that's exactly what I need by my side, not someone who fits into this world perfectly, but someone who makes it better. Tears welled up in Mira's eyes, but she blinked them back, searching his expression for any trace of doubt. All she found was sincerity and love. Still, there was one question lingering between them. What happens now? She asked softly. Your company, the takeover bid. How do we fight this together? A flicker of determination lit up Ethan's face. We fight it your way, he said. Not with boardroom battles or ruthless tactics, but with honesty and purpose. I've spent years building this empire, but maybe it's time I stopped trying to control everything and started focusing on what really matters, people. If I lose the company, then fine, but I won't lose myself for you. Together, they devised a plan. Instead of countering the hostile takeover with aggression, Ethan decided to address the public directly, laying bare the truth about his struggles, and sharing his vision for the future, a vision inspired by Mira's values of compassion and community. It was risky, unconventional even, but it resonated deeply with employees, shareholders, and customers alike. Slowly but surely, support began to shift in their favor. During this time, Mira continued her work with underserved communities, channeling her energy into projects that aligned with Ethan's new direction. Her efforts earned widespread praise, silencing critics who had once dismissed her as out of her depth. Even Victoria, Ethan's ex, begrudgingly acknowledged her resilience during a chance encounter. You're tougher than I gave you credit for, Victoria admitted, though her tone remained icy. Mira simply smiled, knowing she didn't need validation from anyone anymore. As weeks turned into months, the tide began to turn. The rival company withdrew its bid, citing mounting pressure from stakeholders who admired Ethan's bold approach. Though shaken, Ethan's business emerged stronger than ever, redefined by a renewed commitment to ethical leadership. Meanwhile, Mira carved out a role for herself within the organization, spearheading initiatives aimed at giving back to society, testament to her enduring influence. But perhaps the most significant victory came when Ethan knelt before her. One quiet evening, holding a simple ring crafted from materials sourced sustainably, a symbol of their shared journey. Mira, he said, his voice trembling with emotion, will you marry me? Not because I need saving, but because I can't imagine my life without you. This time, there were no doubts clouding her mind. With tears streaming down her face, she nodded. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Their wedding, held in the mountains where their story began, was intimate yet profound. Villagers danced alongside executives, blending two worlds in celebration of love that transcended boundaries. As Mira stood beside Ethan under a canopy of stars, she realized that while their journey had been fraught with challenges, it had also taught them invaluable lessons about trust, growth, and the power of staying true to oneself. In the end, their story wasn't just about a village girl and a billionaire CEO, or it was about finding strength in vulnerability, embracing change without losing identity, and proving that love, when nurtured with authenticity, can conquer even the greatest odds. As they walked hand in hand into their future, Mira knew one thing for certain: no matter where life took them next, they would face it together as equals, partners, and soulmates.